And I do want to introduce one of our state leaders who's here in celebration today, our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. Throughout her career, Secretary Benson has advocated for others. She served as the Dean of the Wayne State University Law School, was Associate Director of Wayne Law's Damon J. Keith Center for Civil Rights, and most recently, she served as the CEO of the Ross Institute in Sports for Equality, a national nonprofit that focuses on the unifying power of sports to inspire positive change on race and equality. The Secretary of State works to ensure all Michigan citizens have access to the ballot box, and today she's here to share how she is advocating for fair and secure elections as she continues to advocate on behalf of Michigan voters. So please join me in welcoming our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson.
Thank you, everybody. And I just want to say, not all of you may know Dave Noble as long as I have. I've known Dave, for almost 20 years now. First met him when I was in law school, and he has been a champion for everyday people, a champion for everyone's rights nationally, and to have a national leader, a national champion who's been doing this work in the field around the country for over 2 decades now, come to Michigan to lead our ACLU. We're so fortunate to have you here, Dave, so welcome to Michigan. Excited to have you here at this unique moment, leading this tremendous team at the ACLU, and I'm proud to be your Secretary of State at this critical moment in the history of our democracy. And as we look around of all the rights, all the work that we do every day to ensure every citizen has a voice and that we have access to better roads, cleaner water, and fair schools, and everything in between. Our ability to have progress on any of those issues all comes down to whether we have access to the vote. And so the work that the ACLU has done for 100 years to make real that access to the vote, to protect everyone's right to vote, is critical, and it's reflected right here in Michigan as a result of their work and others throughout the state of Michigan to amend our state constitution, to instill new rights for voters in our Constitution. You now, as a result of the Promote the Vote effort that the League of Women Voters, the ACLU of Michigan, and many other organizations led last year, every citizen in Michigan now has a right to vote by mail. You no longer have to be one of the few, we no longer are one of the few states in the country where you have to vote in person or have an excuse to vote absentee. Now everyone has a right to vote by mail prior to an election, and they also have a right to register to vote at any point, up to and including on Election Day, which is also critical to reducing barriers for young people, for disenfranchised communities, and for citizens throughout the state of Michigan who now not only have a right to vote, but a right to ensure that access to the vote is protected. And also in the Promote the Vote effort, you have a constitutional right to audit our machines, because what we know is as we follow national and international events is that there are real efforts to try to undermine the sanctity of our elections here in Michigan and nationwide. And that's why we must ensure that our machines are accurately counting our ballots, and the right to an audit of our machines, now enshrined in our state constitution, is also critical to making sure that when you do cast your ballot, it is counted accurately, and the results of the election are an accurate reflection of the will of the voters. All of that is now a right for every citizen in Michigan as a result of the work of the ACLU of Michigan and so many of its partners throughout the state of Michigan, and so many voters and citizens like all of you to make that change happen. And I'm honored to be a Secretary of State now who gets to implement a lot of those changes. We've already started implementing the vote by mail right. You can now go and request a ballot if one of your communities are voting in the May 7th election and vote by mail. And we're also making real that voter registration promise, as well as many of the other aspects of the Promote the Vote amendment. But in addition to that, protecting the right to vote is only one piece of protecting our democracy. It's also critical that when we do go out to vote, we're casting ballots in districts that are drawn fairly by citizens and not by politicians who are trying to predetermine the outcome of elections and rig the outcome of a district election by the way a district is drawn. And thanks to citizens throughout this state, we now have enshrined in our Constitution a protection for citizens to draw their own legislative districts, to draw your congressional districts, no longer have them drawn by people trying to protect their own incumbency, but instead drawn by all of you. And the moment we're in right now is where anyone can begin to start thinking about whether they want to serve on that commission. Go to redistrictingmichigan.org and find out more about how you can sign up to be a part of the Citizens Redistricting Commission that's coming our way shortly after next year's presidential election. It's an exciting time to be here in Michigan, an exciting moment for our democracy, and I note that I'm saying that in the midst of a cloud that's overhanging our country right now, where rights are being stripped of our citizens every day, and debates are happening that we never thought would happen over the treatment of people in our country and fairness and equality and justice. But in my view, we have one protection, one constitutional protection that can change any injustice and fight and end any injustice in our country, and that is our right to vote. And so if you and I work together to ensure that right to vote is protected, that it's real for every one of our citizens, that we go to disenfranchised communities and engage citizens in exercising their power to define our future, we can change this state, we can change this country. And that's why I'm proud to be a Secretary of State with that vision, to partner with all of you to make that a reality. So thank you for the work that you do. Here's to the next 100 years, because our work continues and our opportunities for change continue every year. So thank you for the work you do, and let's keep fighting to continue the work together. Thank you.